Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Mike Missanelli podcast. We are starting the week with a podcast with some big doings on the horizon for two of the teams that play winter sports, the Sixers and the Flyers. And of course, the Mike Missanelli podcast is brought to you by the great people at BetRivers. I hope you made some money on the Masters. BetRivers had a lot of interesting bets out there. I actually grabbed Will Zalatoris early, and he stunk, and then I flipped into Colin Morikawa for a top three finish. So I was golden as Colin Morikawa. He kind of, gave it up at the end, but he was in the money. So I'm good with that. The BetRivers app is fantastic. We are doing this podcast on Tuesday, April 16th. It's the day before, a day of reckoning for the Philadelphia 76ers. And we'll talk about that and the Flyers coming up and what has to happen for the Flyers by the time you listen to this podcast. Maybe the Flyers are out of it. But as we do this, they still have a glimmer of hope. It's a 5% chance of making the playoffs after a season like this. All right, so let's get to the Sixers. They had to win the last game against the Nets on Sunday. And if I were the Nets, I would have been very insulted because they decided to sit out Joel Embiid. In other words, we don't need Embiid to win this game. We're going to win it anyway. Now, it turned out that they were correct. But it also turns out that the Nets have absolutely no pride whatsoever because the Sixers blatantly dangled Embiid in front of their nose, saying, we don't need him to beat your ass. And they wound up winning the game. But the rest of the results did not comply with the Sixers for them to get the sixth seed to avoid the play-in because the Pacers and Magic won their game. So here's where we stand. The Sixers, after all this, are in the play-in tournament. Now, it doesn't appear to be that daunting for me, this play-in tournament for the Sixers, unless they lose the game tomorrow night, Wednesday night, at the Wells Fargo Center against your Miami Heat. And we'll get into the back and forth of that game in a second. So the Sixers now have to do this. They have to win Wednesday against the Heat to lock in the seventh seed, which would put them into a first-round playoff match against the New York Knicks. Now, I actually, the Knicks have had a great season. Jalen Brunson is an MVP candidate. I don't think it's that daunting for the Sixers to beat the Knicks in a seven-game series. All right? I'll take my chances with that, even though the Knicks, they have the home court advantage. But I think the Sixers can win that series. And if they win that series, it puts them into a matchup with the Milwaukee Bucks, which I believe they can win that series also. And I don't even like this Sixers situation, but I'm looking at it realistically. Are the Knicks that daunting? No. Are the Bucks right now that daunting? No. So it is very possible the Sixers find themselves in an Eastern Conference final against the Boston Celtics. Do I think they can beat Boston? No. But they have a chance to beat Boston as long as Embiid is healthy and is playing every game. And he doesn't miss any games with this knee tweak. So let's look at the situation this year against the Heat. The Heat always give the Sixers trouble because they've got this playoff Jimmy concept with Jimmy Butler. He always plays well in the playoffs, especially plays well against the Sixers because all he has to do is look at Tobias Harris and score 30. Because he somehow, this Tobias Harris thing gets him unnerved that the Sixers chose Tobias Harris over him, which really wasn't the case. But players manufacture these little feuds in their head to pump them up. So playoff Jimmy could be playoff Jimmy, or he could not be playoff Jimmy. They're not going to be without Duncan Robinson in his playing game, which to me is a major loss for the Heat with that three-point power that he has. And we know what the Heat are going to do. They're going to, a lot of the times, zone up the Sixers and dare them to make shots. That's how they've had success in the past. Now, this Sixer team is a little different than teams they've had in the past because they've added Kelly Oubre, who can hit a three. I think Tobias Harris has actually been a better three-point shooter. Maxi's been really good. Kyle Lowry, you never know. I don't know if Melton's going to be able to play. Like, all these questions are still out there. But I think in a game at home, in a play-in situation with Embiid playing, the Sixers win that game. And I don't actually think it'll be that close, that game. All right? I think the home court advantage is firmly in the Sixers' grasp. I think they'll carry that through. I think they win this by a substantial margin. Now, what is a substantial margin? More than the line would indicate. I haven't even looked at the line right now, but I think the Sixers are an 8-point winner in this game at least. This year, the team split 2-2. So let's go over each game. On December 25th, the Christmas Day special, at Miami, they lost 119 to 113. However, there was no Joel Embiid in that. Oubre with 25, Tobias at 27, Melton had 16 in that game. Next time they played them was February 14th, Valentine's Day. 2 holidays the Miami Heat got the Sixers with. They lost, the Sixers lost to that game. Again, no Embiid. Miami won it 109-104. Maxey had 30, a wasted 30. But then the Sixers rallied over the last 2 times they played Miami this year. March 18th, they won without Embiid. That was a monster win for the Sixers. You remember it all, 98-91, as Maxey went for 30 again and a win and end. Most recently, April 4th at Miami, Embiid played. The Sixers won 109-105. Embiid with 29. Maxey had 37. There was no Tyler Hero in that game. So let's look at Miami's lineup and what they'll face for Wednesday night. Rozier will play as the starting point guard, giving Miami a different look than they've had in the past. Adebayo, they've been going with Nikola Jovic in their starting lineup. And, of course, Jimmy Butler, and we don't know if Tyler Hero is going to play in this game. All right, so they're kind of shortchanged. And, again, it's Miami, the way they play the Sixers, frustrate the Sixers. Eric Spoelstra is a really good, crafty X and O coach, and he knows how to play this Sixer team, and he knows how to play Joel Embiid. Now, Adebayo has been a pretty rough matchup for Joel Embiid in the past. The Sixers starting lineup will go Lowry, Maxey, Embiid, Oubre, and Harris. All right, Miami after the All-Star break, pretty good. They were 16-11 after the All-Star break. They had a plus 133-point differential. However, they were only 21st in offensive rankings. So their offense slogged, even though their defense kept them in most games. And again, we talked about the zone defense that they employ. 13% of the time they are in a zone for the entire season, and that may increase against the Philadelphia 76ers. The Sixers, with Embiid in the lineup, a sterling 31-8. Without him, they were 15-27. Since his return, he has averaged 30, 9 rebounds, 5 assists in those 5 games. Can he rise his level in the playoffs? That is the bigger question down the road as we get deeper into the playoffs. But this being a must-win game, I believe the Sixers and Embiid will come up big and they will win that game, leaving them with the 7th seed. Now, if they lose Wednesday, it's not the end of the season. They would have to then turn around and beat the winner at home of the Atlanta Hawks and the Chicago Bulls. And if they win that game, and I can't imagine they would lose that game at home, that would lock them into the 8th seed, and you know what that means. They get the Boston Celtics in the first round. All right, so Darren, do we have a line on this game Wednesday?
4.5 and 207.5 is the total.
Sixers 4.5. You know, that's a line that I don't know. It's kind of low. So
it's a little low.
Maybe it'll be closer than I think. I don't know. But I'm going to bet this.
Yeah, it's a Miami line by your terms.
When you just said 4.5, I just in my head flashed take the Heat with the 4.5 because that means it's going to be a nail biter.
By your standards, without question, it's a Miami line.
Yes. All right. So that's the situation on that game. Again, the Knicks. I hate to jump ahead because I know people are going to say, "Oh, Mikey, you mushed them." I think the Sixers will get that 7th seed. I think they will play the Knicks in the first round. Now, am I shortchanging the Knicks here? I probably am. Because they play hard. Jalen Brunson wills them to win, and the head coach has willed them to win. So they're going to be a tough out. But I just think that it's not a daunting task to think that they can win 4 games against the Knicks. To me, it's a very daunting task to think they can win 4 against Boston. And I also think if they get to the next round, this Milwaukee team is so flunky. I don't know how they're going to be in the playoffs. They look a little short to me in rotation. So I never thought that this Sixer team would get into an Eastern Conference final to play the Boston Celtics for the chance to go to the NBA Finals. But I'm looking at it now, and I'm the last thing I am is a homer. I believe that they have a realistic chance to play in the Eastern Conference Finals this year with this team. All right, we'll see how it turns out. Darren,
Mike, I think you're burying the lead. The lead is something you taught me a long time ago. They can't beat Miami. I don't want to get out. I don't want to hear it. There should be no question that they should be able to beat Miami. Now you get to the Knicks. Look, New York was a better team than them for most of the season, but I don't know that they have an answer for a healthy Embiid. But first things first, if you can't beat Miami at home in one game with a healthy Embiid, dude, I don't want. It's over. I don't want to hear.
Here's the mistake you're making. It's just not a 5 or 7 game series. This is one game. The longer a series goes on, Miami, I get it that Miami is formidable. In a situation like this, where the Heat really are kind of in and out with their lineup, they got guys banged up, they have been up and down, they have not been consistent. You're going to ask that team, it's a one-game situation to come into Philadelphia and win that game. I don't think the same criterion applies in a one game that it would apply in a series. So when you say they can't beat Miami, maybe they can't beat Miami in a longer series. They certainly should be able to beat them in one game at home, and they're well rested because Embiid won't have played in several days.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, there should be no reason. There's no reason the Sixers can't beat Miami. And if they don't beat them, then they weren't ready for, once again, they weren't ready. I don't think this game should be close tomorrow night.
I agree. So that's why the lead to me is whether they can get to the Eastern Conference Finals.